All right, obviously we're both here, but let's do roll call.
Supervisor Gonzalez,
Here.
Supervisor Sotelo.
Here.
Okay, can I get acknowledgement certificate of posting?
So move.
I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 2-0. Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the regular agenda. So item A, to approve the action minutes for the March 21st, 2024 facilities meeting. Can I get a motion?
So move.
Okay. I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, so that takes us to a regular agenda. Item 1B, receive an update on the capital improvement on the library. And the crowd roars.
Yeah, it's exciting. Good afternoon, Chair and Vice Chair. Steve Liu, Public Works Administrator. So today we will be presenting the preliminary design for the library expansion. And we have JC Famott from Anderson Brule Architects. He's going to walk us through the progress that the team has made and their team has made. And we're real excited. And we'd also like your input towards the end of the presentation on some of the exterior colors and concepts. And so I'll let JC take over. So.
Hey, Steve, before we get started, can I ask you a couple of questions?
Sure.
Because I know that, I don't know, was Steve here last time when we talked a little bit? Maybe not. So we had a little bit of a discussion about possibly this footprint is rather small, and I know that there's been a lot of hard work, but there was some discussion around potentially the old courthouse, and we were going to check and see if the grant permitted us to do that. Expend the funds there, and then our insurance money could then go to the existing library so we could refurbish that with our fire funds potentially. So just before we went too far down this road, I was just hoping maybe County Council, if you could give us any kind of an update, or Manny, if somebody would like to just chime in on that, just to say absolutely not, forget that thought and like let's move forward. Or I want to make sure that we're exhausting every single resource, and that, you know, I would have loved to seen a library 2-3 times the size. It just, the footprint, when I looked at it last time, I was like, wow, this isn't, I mean, yes, it's an expansion, but it's still not big enough. So I get that if this is the best that we have, it's the best we have. But if there's any chance that it could be bigger and better, I'm all for that. So.
For those who aren't privy to the conversations, we were looking at the 18,000 square foot library footprint that we have currently in the plans, but we were looking at potentially the old courthouse, which would give us 22,000 upper and lower floors. And so we figured that would be more bang for our buck, and, you know, bigger facility, so much more room to plan. But again, we needed the logistics to see if the state and the insurance would work with us in the switch from the existing footprint to the potentially old courthouse building. So, Ray?
Well, we have.
So,
go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, the answer is yes. We have been exploring that option as directed by supervisors and discussed with Manny and Ray. So I'll comment on a couple things, and then Ray and or Manny can jump in as well. So the general answer to your question is the state will consider that request. Now, a couple caveats to moving the library into the old courthouse. One, we've already spent about $500,000 on design for the current concept that has a lot of excellent features to it. Two, the grant is for the library expansion is for $15 million. And for $15 million, you get quite a bit of improvements to the existing facility. It might not be as large as we all want, but the improvements are substantial. Whereas improving the existing building, I think it would be very, very difficult to spend $15 million on tenant improvements, because we keep all the structure intact. And so we could do a lot of the remodeling inside, but I don't think you necessarily get the level of features, because we just couldn't spend that much. This is kind of the bottom line. But In addition to that, some of the things that has been discussed is when you have a library, you just want a couple access points. You don't want a lot of access points, so we'd have to be the old courthouse, we have a lot of access points, and we have to kind of close those up and do some things with walls and things, which we could probably afford. So I'll just say this, there's some challenges to using the courthouse for the library. The big benefit is we would have a good place we wouldn't have to do as much necessarily relocation of folks, because we could just turn that into a library. Everyone could kind of stay where they're at today and then move folks in there. So that is a big plus, because then the library could stay functional, right? But aside from that, there's challenges. I don't know, I'll pause there and maybe, I don't know if Manny.
I'll add, I know Manny did some homework on this. He did reach out to the state. Again, just as long as we're following the grant process, there's potential there of actually changing the site. But again, as Steve said, there's already been some work done, some cost to it. I think the other element that we haven't really penciled completely, because we don't know what that would look like without the architectural plans for the new building, is staffing. And that's the one thing that I'm a little bit concerned about, is we are going to significantly increase it, which means what does that equal to ongoing salaries increase in the library budget. So we'd have to look at that as well. So that part we have not really analyzed yet. I have not spent a lot of time with Manny on that. I think as mentioned earlier, I think one of the concerns that Manny had with the existing plans was having the entrance and the exit, and the concerns are the staffing and increasing staffing for that, I think, was a concern. So we have a lot of entrances and exits in the other building. We'll have to really look at that, and obviously if the board wanted to go that direction, we're obviously open to it. But there have to be a lot of kind of shifting gears and having to really look at the staffing element that goes with it. And one of the things that occurred with the courthouse across the street was we had a maintenance of effort that we are obligated across the street to maintain. But with that, there was also an increase in square footage, which we didn't really account for, or back in the day, we didn't really account for having to add more personnel from a correction point of view to address the exits and everything. So we had to add more staff. They changed it up a little bit to have just the main entrance way, but we still have the monitoring systems and having additional staff in there. But that was definitely an increase. Also, SAL coverage was another item. So increase in square footage means more staff and means more cost, ongoing cost from a different fund that we'd have to really spend a little bit more time on. But I think the way the plans are right now, I think is conducive to, we still have to deal with the budget, still have to deal with it, but I think it's more manageable, just at a high level view of it. Now, if the board wants to change gears, change directions, we're more than willing. I know that I think it comes into the tax collector treasurer's office and them moving as well. They would move into that spot. I think with the existing plans, we are still increasing square footage to some extent for the library, which we would potentially, I'm not sure, depending on how much money we get out of the fire fund, I don't know if we'd be able to increase that square footage, because we may not have as much. We won't have the 15 million, most likely. That's what we're going to have. So that may not, we may be losing square footage overall between both projects. So that's just at a very high level what we've done some homework on. So
Yeah, it's actually a good point, whereas if we move folks into the old courthouse, then we don't expand the existing library building, and that expansion just goes away. It goes into the new courthouse, obviously, but right now we'd have the courthouse plus the library expansion, whereas shifting folks into the courthouse, or the library into the courthouse, obviously the library expands, but the buildings themselves, we wouldn't have the library expanded, obviously. So that's, I think, we miss out on that part too.
yeah, pros and cons to
Yeah,
really both sides.
I think if the supervisors want us to move forward, we need to do it pretty quick. We probably need, a couple, maybe 100,000 of just having an architect look at the feasibility of using that building as a library, and pretty quickly, I think the state will want some concept to see if what we plan, if we plan to move into the old courthouse move the library into the old courthouse, so we plan to do that pretty quick. I did have a real brief conversation with ABA, but to have them look at that, they're very on board with looking at the old courthouse as a new library, but we just had some brief talks about that.
So can I just ask you for clarification? So with the old courthouse, you had mentioned that we have the $15 million. I don't know if I heard you correctly, and so that's where I'm asking for clarification. Are you saying that we wouldn't have, like, with what we have there, we wouldn't be able to spend 15 million? Is that what I'm understanding? Okay, so what about this idea? What about pushing it out all the way to the poles? And then you can control how many access points, because essentially you're going to build them. And then we gain even more square footage.
Pushing out the courthouse?
So you,
The
yeah, so
perimeter.
you know how like there's those large pillars that are there? I mean, if we could figure out how to spend $15 million,
Thank you.
right? Like, I mean, to me, that's like the weakest excuse I can think of is, well, we can't spend the whole 15 million. My concern is, one, I want a bigger if we can. Two is that, for as long as this construction takes, I haven't heard a plan for where the library is going to be in this interim period, right? So if we did it at the courthouse, the library never has to close because it just shifts over when it's ready. If we did it at the existing library, where's the library gonna go? Or are we just closing it for a year and a half? Like, what is the plan? I haven't heard anything. It doesn't mean there's not a plan. It just means I haven't heard it yet.
So, you want to speak to that, or you want to?
Yeah, so we've talked about two concepts. One is, well, I guess there's three. One is the library services are put on hold for a year and a half, like you're saying. That's one concept. Two is, we did talk early on about having that staff go be relocated to Rosa Murata, which is not the most
ideal
convenient location. And three, we've been talking about having the staff move into a portion of the old courthouse on the interim. The library staff would move there in an interim while the library's expanded. So those are the three options that we discussed.
And then during COVID, there was also discussion. Again, this is way back when we were first analyzing the potential of actually having a library expansion, was to kind of do a mirror of what was done during COVID, because the library wasn't seeing customers at the time, and so using the bookmobiles and kind of doing more of an outreach, and that would probably be the number one choice, with a kind of a hybrid of going to the old courthouse, so having kind of both with that. That's been those are the kind of 3 or 4 options that we've been discussing back and forth.
I just know, I mean, I was at the library not too long ago, a couple of times last month, and every time I've gone there, it is packed. And it seems like such a disservice to this community to consider closing it, or even modifying, going back to what we did during COVID. We modified during COVID because it was absolutely necessary. It was the only way that we could operate. Ideally I don't want to do that, but I don't know. And I look at, okay, Rosa Murata I think the estimate was around $300,000 to get that place. I just don't, Rosa Murata is like, to me, it's not even an option. I mean,
Right.
It's so far outside of the count of
proximity,
the
it's not close
city
enough.
that I don't know if that makes a whole lot of sense. And I don't know. I think it's worth exploring. I would love to have a serious conversation about it. I understand maybe we'd have to invest a little bit, but I feel like we have an opportunity right now to maybe put our heads together and really kind of figure out a solution that really works for the county. I get possibly staffing is an issue, but I think that we could work through that. And I think if we did some of these different construction and we're worried about we have too much money to spend, it sure seems like we could find a solution and close off some of those access points so that staffing isn't as much of a question. I would love to have maybe, there's a meeting with maybe all of us to, including, friends of the library, and see, is this a direction that the community wants, or is this just me being crazy? I'm coming very late to the table. I apologize, but I just want to make sure that we investigate every possibility before. $15 million is a lot of money, and so let's put it to the best use for this community. And I think somebody I know in the audience knows this statistic. What is the square footage that you should have for population?
So
1 square foot per resident. So
66,000 square
according to
feet is
that,
what we need.
we should have close to probably 65, let's say 65,000 square feet, and we're going to go with 18,000 square feet.
Yeah, no.
I mean, even at 22 isn't, and 25 is probably not maximum, but huge improvement to what we have. But I think if there's any possibility, I would love to talk to our department heads, find out how they feel about some of these things too. I know the assessors here. What does that look like? What is the cost going to be to the county on all of those? I think there's questions to be answered, but I think there's possibility. And I would rather, I feel like, yes, we've spent 500,000 to 15 million. It's a drop in the bucket. Let's do this right. So that's just my 2 cents.
And I appreciate your 2 cents. And just because you're late to the party doesn't mean your ideas are not good ideas. They're great ideas. And unfortunately, this was presented to us just this last meeting that we had on March 21st. And so we're thinking aloud with you at the same time. So if it looks like it's a little bit discombobulated, it is only because it's a new idea on the table. And it's a new idea that has been introduced to us. And so we are embracing the possibilities. But when we were talking about $15 million to get a library expansion, and all we were getting, what was the difference between the old library footprint versus what we're going to have in the end with the current existing plan? 4,000 new square feet, was that?
Yeah, existing library footprint is 11,000 square feet. We're going up to 18,000 square feet.
Okay, so 7,000. So when you do the math, 15 million divided by 7,000 square feet, it's a ridiculous amount of money that we're paying for 7,000 square feet. So if we can kind of switch the footprint from one building, the existing library, to potentially the courthouse, that's why it's a win-win for me. And as I was hearing both Ray and Steve talk, I didn't hear a no. So that's what I'm focusing on. I didn't hear a no at all. I heard it's going to be difficult.
It's a maybe. It's not a no. It's a
Right.
maybe.
It's not. That's what I was going to say. I was absolutely going to say, to answer your question, it's not. It's not a no. The state is saying, look, you got to go through some more hoops. You got to make sure you follow the grant. You got to do X, Y, and Z, but it's doable. So
They'll consider it.
yeah, they'll consider it. But I think the key to take from this is that we really need to stop what we're doing and invest in it and address it, potentially with the new building, and do some communication with department heads and I think this is such a big decision. I think we probably need to bring it back to the board probably May 14th and have this as a good dialogue for the next budget meeting that we have, because we're going to have to address that. And part of the discussion this morning that I had with staff is ARPA and spending the 2.5 million that we have allocated for our obligation, our maintenance of effort on the grant. It's actually 5 million, but we actually allocated 2.5. We're not far enough along to expend that this year, or to even document that.
Couldn't the .5
So-
be written off as the architectural plans that we were looking at if it was a change
It's
of
only going to be a
plan?
portion. We're probably $1 million out of all the funds is what we calculated this morning. I guess the point we're making is that we're going to probably look at diverting that and probably just using impact fees, future impact fees, and taking a loan out against our own impact fees to cover those costs in the future. That's kind of the plan, which we'll have to talk more about on the 14th. But we have to get that dialed in, the ARPA piece of it as well.
And the reason you mentioned ARPA is because ARPA has a deadline in terms of us expanding it, right? I don't know if the public knows that, but if we don't use it by a certain date, we lose it, and it reverts back to the state, and so that's why it's such a big issue for us. Okay. And I did hear you say one other thing about the FTEs versus space, and for me that's a no-brainer. I'd rather buy the space. and worry about finding the FTE budgeting at a later date. But space is at premium here in San Diego County in the city of Hollister, and if we can maneuver a larger space and a footprint for the library now with that 15 million, that's the route I want to go.
Noted.
Okay, thank you.
Is there, before we completely like throw this in the toilet, I want to make sure that we're moving in the right direction. That is what the community wants, right? So I would love to hear from the Friends of the Library if you have any input on this, or if you want to schedule a meeting in the next week or so with me. I would love to know what your thoughts are. I feel really guilty coming in at the last second and throwing this wrench in, but I want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the community. So
I'd also ask to meet with the elected department heads that are impacted as well. I think that would be really critical, crucial.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I want to make sure that and so it would just be, if we're pausing on this, we're going to take a short pause to make sure that, I know we kind of thought we were going in a particular direction, but almost to kind of pause, let's check in with everybody and let's schedule another facilities meeting in a couple of weeks to go, okay, here's where, now this is the direction we're moving, or okay, let's go with this. I don't want to say anything is off the table. I just want to make sure we've explored every option.
And then, and just so your board members are aware, the overarching timeline too we're up against. We got an extension of 18 months, but
Right.
that'll go quickly. So
100%.
we need
Absolutely.
to make decisions quickly.
And so that's why if
Yeah.
we could possibly have a facilities meeting prior to the May 14th board meeting, that then it could go to the board, and if that's the direction that the board, that the community and our department heads, everybody is agreeable and wants to do, then take it to the board for a blessing, and then start moving forward in an expedited timeline.
And we're scheduled, we have that scheduled to bring it back to the board, the ARPA element, the funding element, because no matter what we do, whether it's at the existing site or the new site, or, the old courthouse, we still have to address the funding piece. So we were going to talk about that with the board anyways.
So Jason, I apologize for doing that to you, but I see a few faces shaking their head. Does that mean you guys want to chime in now about what we're talking about?
Yeah, no, we'll still have the presentation because it's on the agenda, but I just wanted to, before we went too far down, and okay.
And it's completely doable. We're here to, this is the will of the board.
Okay.
We'll make
Okay.
it happen.
And there may be a no coming from this segment of the population, which is fine, but I just haven't heard a no yet. So that's just what I'm just trying to say.
Yeah, so what I
Okay.
would suggest, as you noted, we'll go through the presentation, gather some input on this, and then since Friends of the Library, some department heads are here, some library staff are here, they'll maybe have some time to gather their thoughts, and since we're all here now,
Yeah.
maybe we can get some preliminary input on that.
Yeah.
concept.
That'd be great.
That sounds, okay. So, JC. all right.
Yeah, does it still make sense to? No, all good conversations. Good. It's important that you guys are making informed decisions, so getting all the information up front.
There we go. It's good.
Good to go. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Happy to be here. I'm looking forward to presenting out a bit of an update to you all, Supervisor Gonzalez, Supervisor Sotelo. I know, this is probably the second time you're looking at where we're at with, design and things of that nature. So really, the intent of today's meeting is to get your input and feedback on kind of the direction we're going with design, because we are in the beginning stages. If we're needing a shift, effort or whatever, now would be the ideal time to do that. So I'll go ahead and jump right in. And please, if you have any questions as I'm presenting this out, feel free to interrupt. I'd be happy to answer anything during the presentation, or we can move all questions to the end. Sorry, let me grab this. All right, so this is the current floor plan as it sits today. Sorry, can I point with this? Can you guys see where the mouse is going when I'm?
The white space is a current floor plan, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, I wanted to point some stuff out, but it doesn't look like you guys can see the maps, right?
I think the pointer works.
Maybe I could.
Go with the pointer.
Is there a
Yeah, the
pointer?
Pointer should work.
If not, you can use my cane.
Actually, yeah, I could just point to it. So this
There
is,
you go.
we got it?
I think that will work.
There we go. Yes, it's pointing at the ceiling right now. That, a little bit lower.
There we go.
You kind of.
I can see it.
Sorry.
Yeah, you can see it.
Okay, sorry, I don't mean to give my back to you all. So this is the current floor plan as it sits today. So as mentioned earlier, the renovation is roughly just a little north of 18,000 square feet. So the current footprint of the library as it sits today is 11,000. Directly adjacent to that is the Office of Education. So we would look to capture that an additional 4,000 square feet, and then add an addition of about 3,000 square feet. Slide. This here is axonometric, kind of showing how everything is starting to lay out and interact with one another. It's also starting to show kind of solid wall versus glass wall. What you could see here is in the children's area, you could see how we're starting to incorporate some outdoor kind of reading courts. So this gives us an opportunity to have a full glass operable partition to allow for a story time, on a beautiful day like this, to allow for the kids to kind of come out here into the courtyard. When we go to the next couple of slides, the exterior elevations, I'll show you what that's starting to look like. And then, so the library floor plan essentially is broken up into 4 distinct zones. Children's area here, young adults area here with the more kind of technical spaces. We have, I think it's just refracting off of the screen. Yeah, sorry. The young adult area here with the more technical spaces. This is a maker space. In here we were looking at some more tech and spaces as well, with like a gaming corner, computer stations, things of that sort. Adults area here. Through the adults area we have a few spaces with different types of seating. Here we have some soft seating. This is a little bit more formal kind of computer station. We have a laptop bar. And then this little area here, this would be the corner nook in the library known as the living room or the fireplace space. It's a little quieter for individual reading or things of that sort. Up front is where we have a series of community room spaces. These range anywhere from about 90 square feet, which would accommodate 4 to 6 occupants. And then on the larger end here, this is about 1,000 square feet. And we could look at, depending on furniture configuration, we would look at probably in the vicinity of 60 occupants to about 120, just depending on the furniture layout. The neat thing about this community space is that its intent is to be operational after library hours. So the design incorporates the drop-down grill here that you can see, and then controlled access along this wall here, so no one can kind of come into this space after hours. These would have dedicated restrooms off of the entry vestibule to kind of service that community space for after hours. And then really kind of back of house sort of things over here. This is the staff area. So this would be individual offices, open workstations, shipping and receiving, book sorting, things of that sort. And we're also carving out a little niche for the Friends of the Library for their book storage and book sales, things of that sort. So that's the floor plan. Any questions so far?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, going back to, well, it doesn't matter if it's this one or the previous slide. Is the County Office of Education, are they still going to be using an area for their server room? Or are they, because I know that was part of
So
discussions a long time ago.
Yes, that is still the case. So that is the MDF room here.
Oh,
located in
okay.
this space. So that is a really high ticket item if it were to need to be relocated at this point. So the intent is really to keep that there and then really build the spaces around it. So we tried to put some janitor closets, restrooms kind of within this vicinity, storage back here, and then maker space, space all kind of surrounding that space to make it look intentional.
Do you know how many square feet is that space? Do you know?
The MDF,
Yeah,
the MDF room. I'd say probably about 200-ish square feet.
200
Yeah,
square feet?
200 square feet.
Okay. And then my other question is, I want to say in a previous maybe conceptual drawing or something, I saw that there was space for the historical, maybe some historical records. Is that still being?
That's no longer the case. No.
That is no
It's-
longer.
No, it's full, just dedicated library storage. at
Okay.
this point, yes.
Okay. Thank you. Those are the only questions I had.
Madam Chair? May I ask a
Yes.
question? So I just want to piggyback on that, on the MDF space. So the county, the library has their main, they have an MDF as well. Are you going to integrate both together, or is it going to be just?
Yes,
is it-
that would be the
Okay,
that would be
okay.
the intent.
So it's
yeah.
not just going to be the
Correct.
the Office of Ed, it's going to be both.
Yeah,
Okay.
'cause so the current footprint as it sits today could accommodate some more equipment in
That's
there, so
great.
we look to kind of relocate
Yeah.
everything in there to make it.
Yeah, that's great. That's just want to
Okay.
make sure.
Great question. All right, so this is the exterior and kind of what it's starting to look like right now at this preliminary phase. I know these images may look a little polished, but this is by no means finished or done. We're presenting this out to really get your input, and wanting to see if we're kind of headed down the right direction. So a couple of things, kind of keywords that we heard as we were working with the Friends of the Library and library staff was that they wanted the new renovation to have a sense of presence on Fifth Street. They wanted it to feel more open, more welcoming. So we're looking to achieve this by opening up the front entry. So this is the main entry now. This would be a complete new storefront system, glass, to allow the community kind of, visuals into the library. In an effort to give it some more presence, we're looking at this kind of marquee type of vertical bin here, to introduce some more verticality to the front elevation. That also gives us an opportunity for some potential signage on there. So I don't know if you can see it in this image, but we have SDCFL here, so that could potentially serve as a marquee for the library as well. In terms of materiality, excuse me, we're wanting to keep things simple and respect the existing architecture on there, which is kind of more of a Victorian, mid-century modern type of feel. So that's the intent with the wood slats and the metal panel there on the vertical edge. So this is similar view, just maybe standing across the street, but you could start to see new windows. This would be directly looking into the new community room, giving occupants some more natural light, as well as individuals who are passing by the opportunity to see all the activities that are happening within the library itself. And then here on the left, you could start to see what the children's court is starting to shape out to be, but essentially the intent there is to provide an outdoor opportunity, again, for reading time or, outdoor activities, wanting to make sure we're providing a barrier as well that doesn't feel that isn't too much of an enclosure. We're looking at maybe a vertical thin wall that's about 5 to 6 feet tall in that area. We would also look to introduce a trellis feature overhead. You can kind of start to see little hints of it here, with the potential of some like shade sails or something in between the bays to allow for some sunshade and things of that nature. As far as landscaping, again, we're looking at some low-lying hedges kind of lining the front of the building. The body of the building, we'd look for a neutral color to complement kind of the palette of the new materials, as well as be respectful of the current architecture on site. So I believe that is the final image. I'd like to really get your input and feedback on the direction we're taking the elevations and see if that's in line with kind of expectations.
May I ask, what's the square footage of the courtyard area for the outside of the children's area?
That's currently about 500 square feet.
It's what, 5 by 10 more or less? Is that what that measurement would be?
No, it's sorry, I had it here. So it's about 20 by, yeah, maybe it's about 20, or actually maybe closer to 30 by 18. So it's a pretty good sized outdoor space there.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any opinion one way or the other about the exterior, but I guess we'll open it up to the public to let them give their input on what we see and potentially what we were talking about previously
Sure.
from the alternate site.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason, for your presentation. Any public comments on anything that has been said, either the presentation or the conversation before the presentation? Please don't be shy. This is our library together.
Good afternoon. My name is Tammy Aviles with the Friends of the San Benito County Free Library, and I guess we'll go back to the old courthouse. The old courthouse location has been proposed since 2017 for us to start looking at if there was a way to redo it, bring it out, like you said, to the columns or to the street, and it was always, for us, it's been deemed too expensive for us to do. And I think we're in agreement with, if there is an opportunity, but I think it also refers back to the grant, and I'm looking at under the grant award and the approved uses. It's seismic, fire safe, ADA compliant, HVAC, and then site engineering. So if that all falls within looking at the courthouse, I think we'd be interested in seeing what the possibilities are, as well as any additional costs, that may come with not just renovating now and expanding a little bit, we'd be expanding a lot and redoing, another whole building. And then with regard to staffing for a larger library, I mean, we're all pushing for a larger library, which kind of, means you'll need more staff. And I know that does put a burden on administration and budgets, but, we can't not do it because we can't afford more staff. And of course, the Friends here would do anything to help and support that effort. And then with entrance and exits, I know we had discussed with the architects prior that the occupancy level is somewhat determined by the number of entrances or number of exits or something like that. And because right now the occupancy is very limited because there's only one entrance and exit. So I guess we'd still like to see some consideration in order to increase occupancy if there could be more exits or entrances or whatever that formula is. We think this presentation is great, and we, thank ABA and the library staff for allowing us to be part of it and, letting us provide our input. And I think that's it. And thank you, Steve. I never ever say thank you to you, but thank you very much, Steve, for all your efforts.
Thank you, Tammy. And then mind you, the old courthouse wouldn't have even been an option had it had not been for the fire. So there was a blessing in disguise with the fire that we sustained in September of last year.
Hi, yes, Susan Logue, Friends of the Library. Hello, everybody with the Facilities Committee. Nice to see you again. Steve. I guess the primary concern is just worried that there's going to be an issue with the old courthouse and renovating it and what that will look like. And I'm wondering, do we have enough time for an architect to really look at the building and decide, we're going to have a two-story library, or we're going to have one story's going away, we're only going to have a one-story library? there's just so many unknowns, and I kind of hate for us to put anything on the back burner because we're really trying to, push the library for a long time. So I kind of hate for it to be put off on another building unless there's, true diligence in getting it done. And then I can see that we would be, more than willing to participate. But it's kind of another snag and another opportunity, but a snag, at the same time. So I guess that's my worry, is just having enough time to really look at it thoroughly and what would the new design look like. Because I like the design when you show the outside. It really looks great. I probably would defer to the library staff as to what you thought in regards to the colors and the wood and all that. I know red's part of the colors with the Hollister High too, so that kind of goes along with the colors that they have at the high school. And then staffing is brought up a lot. I think that's just a reality. We need to look at it. We can't really do much about that. It's just 60,000 square feet. Well, then it's going to take more people, which means more money, and something that we should be planning for as we go forward. So just wanted to give my 2 cents, but thank you for all your considerations and working so hard for a new library.
Thank you, Susan.
Anyone else?
Does staff want to say anything? Not to put you on the spot or anything, but your input is very valuable.
We did ask if you were here when the meeting started. Is Manny here?
Good afternoon, Chair, and Supervisor Sotelo. Thank you for the opportunity. A lot of great points have been brought up, and one of the things, and I've talked to Ray and I've talked to Steve, is, everything's been said, but the thing that an expanded library will also expand the desires and the requests from the community. So we've talked about the staffing already, and it'll require, people, the community is going to expect more programming. So with that, I don't know how much staff is going to be needed. I'm not a librarian, but I think it's going to behoove us moving forward to check in with other libraries to see what the staffing levels, some of them expanded. I know that when the city of Salinas created the new Gavilan library, I don't know how many staff they added. So, I mean, those are the kind of things that I think we can still look at and we should look at, because again, it's going to create, if it does move to the I haven't even been in that building, so I have no idea. I don't know if the library staff has actually been in the courthouse. I have no clue what it looks like. So again, it will depend on what, how the programming and all that, but there's a lot to be discussed. But I do want to say that, I'm glad that Supervisor Sotelo has spent some time at the library. We are at times, I don't know what the capacity is, but I know sometimes it looks like we're at capacity because ongoingly we are offering programs that entice more people to come in. Plus a lot of computers. I mean, a lot of the community comes in to use the computer systems that we have, because we do provide a lot of access to that. So again, thank you for the opportunity, but I think any option to create a better library for the community is what we, the staff would like to do too. So thank you. Any questions? I will not be here the next 2 weeks, so if you have a meeting, Austin and Becky will have to represent us.
Thank you, Manny.
You want to get Tom? You might as well, Tom. Or forever hold your peace. or forever hold your peace.
Tom Slavich, County Assessor. So after the fire, we were lucky to move to 1131 San Felipe, the assessor's office and the tax collector. The building has some issues out there. Overall, there's really no room for expansion. It's pretty much, you might be able to add a few more people, but it's pretty full capacity. The other issue is getting some complaints from the taxpayers that it's too far out, not centrally located, having a hard time finding it. Those are some of the issues that we encountered pretty much. But there are some issues with that building. Our intention was to come back to the courthouse, along with all three departments, but I understand all options have to be looked at. But anyways, that's pretty much the gist of it, so just wanted to put my 2 cents in. Thank you.
Thank you.
May I say a couple comments?
Please.
And thank you, Tom and Melinda, for being so flexible, as well as Francisco. They've been tremendous, and the staff as well. You know, one of the options with that, Tom, is that probably instead of staying out there, potentially moving back to a revised current library location, which is the, was it 12, how many square feet is the current footprint? 11,000 square feet. So it pretty much would be similar to what you have now, pretty close to it. You know, the other thing I just wanted to comment on a couple things. One is my job is to look at the entire budget and look at staffing. This is potentially 4,000 square feet more than the 18,000. So obviously, you know, staff, there would need to be more staff. We need to evaluate what that is and what those costs are. That's my job. I have to do that and share it with the entire board, and make sure that you guys have everything you have before you to make the decision. So that's what I hope to do, and hopefully have some more information on the 14th for you to make that decision. So I think that's important. Sometimes there's misnomers about impact fees, which we have allocated. We've actually created an impact fee, library impact fee, which has been great to offset the $5 million that we're obligated to provide in this particular grant. So we're going to leverage that as much as we can. Obviously, we have about $1 million, a little bit over $1 million in there, and we still need $4 more million. So we were going to use ARPA to cover that. But me personally, I would rather use all of the impact fees to cover the full $5 and then divert the ARPA somewhere else, to roads or something else that we can, you know, somewhere else. So we're still working on that, just in light of us not having, or the ability to be invoiced for the full amount of money that we have allocated due to the timing piece that Supervisor Gonzalez mentioned earlier. So with that, you know, we'll have more information on that. The operational part of it, we can't leverage those impact fees for operations for staffing. It has to be two separate pots of money. So I just want to make sure the public was aware of that. And you know, this year, from a staffing perspective, it's been very, I've been spending a lot of time with Ramon on the budget to try to balance it from a non-vacancy perspective, which the board was asking at the last meeting to look at options of not having us have the vacancy budgeting element, which does make it a lot easier to budget. We still have to use reserves to offset it, but typically we've been ending up in the black every year because of the vacancy piece. So if we don't do that, it will be more of a strain on the FTE piece, or an FTE count for all departments, as well as even for the library in the future. I just want to be honest with you and forthcoming with everyone, the public as well, because we have provided increased funding and increased health care to be competitive in our community. Those are the points I just wanted to highlight, and based on some of the comments, I think it's important to be able to express that.
I know maybe a completely inappropriate comment from me, but is there any opportunity for us to partner at all with, like, the city, with the library, to be able to offer better services or a larger facility or something? I mean, it benefits all of us. It benefits our entire community. I don't care if it's the county or the city. I don't know. Is there any opportunity for that at looking to, you know, help?
I do not think that's inappropriate. I think that's very appropriate based on the clientele that's actually receiving services. I'm not sure the exact current number. Anywhere from 70 to 80% of the clientele are city residents at one point. I'm not sure if that's the current number today. I'm getting nods, yes. So substantial amount of city residents. So I think it's something that, and I have reached out to the city manager on more than one occasion. I'd say a handful of occasions, We have a lot that we're talking about with regards to tax sharing agreements, fire contracts, and a lot of different things. But this is definitely one of the items. And I think it is very appropriate to have them be a part of this. And I think it's important for our community in general. So I'll continue those talks.
Yeah, it's not inappropriate at all. It's been a conversation that I have been bugging the CAO for the last couple of years is what about the city of Hollister share? So not inappropriate at all. Thank you. So if there aren't any other questions or comments on item B, which I'm assuming there are none, and we will go on to the next.
Wait, can I provide some feedback?
Oh, yes,
for mine?
please.
Sorry. I was waiting to hear what everybody else had to say. And
Okay.
so, if I'm looking at this, I really appreciated I thought it was very thoughtful in some of the areas, the design that you guys came up with. I love the idea of having the community room and being able to use it after hours. I think is such a need in our community. I think it'll be used probably almost every night, but a way to block off the library. Brilliant. Love that. I like the outdoor space. My only concern is if that gate is not up high enough, will we have issues with people crossing over at night and sleeping there and that sort of thing. And I don't know. I used to work somewhere that we had a small kind of alcove area, and it became it got really bad, so that we ended up having to fence the entire thing in. So and we had to go all the way to the top. So just something for us to think about. We obviously don't want to add, picking up trash and other things for our staff. It was really bad. I had to deal with it, believe me. As far as the vertical element, I don't know. I don't have I love it or I hate it. I think it's interesting. Yeah, I don't know. I love the wood in front. I think that's a nice touch. I feel like it kind of, reflects kind of our county. And the coloring, I like kind of the neutral color on the outside of the building. The red, I don't know. Do we have a county color? Is there a color that matches with all of the other buildings? I would say just being, I realize we want it to look very aesthetically pleasing, but we also don't want it to stick out like a sore thumb, that it's, that it doesn't match with any of the other buildings. So I would just say that we want it to somewhat kind of be beautiful, but kind of blend in. You know what I mean? Like if the other, I don't know, I've never really paid attention to what the trim color is on our other buildings.
Well, the one next to it's burnt, so so no,
But like probation,
Yeah.
county administrative building.
They're-
Like I don't.
They look like they're all the same base color, not the wood piece, but the base color. I'm not sure where that was actually thought of. Maybe you can elaborate a little further on the color
I do want to
element.
clarify that. So, looking at the budget, being budget conscious, that is actually the existing trim color. So that's an enameled metal panel. Replacing that would be somewhat costly. So we were
Okay.
looking at either repairing where needed, or just kind of really leaving that in place and that being the foundation of other color selection.
Okay, got you. But it's not bright red.
It's not bright red, no. I think it's probably how it's being shown off of the screen in the
It's kind of
prints,
that
but
burgundy-ish, deeper,
yeah, a little-
neutrally
yeah, it's a little
red.
softer than what
landscapey red. I don't know.
Yeah.
Redwood. Okay, but I love having the outdoor area. I think that's really nice. I think creating kind of just a warm, welcoming, inviting place is what you've kind of captured, and I really appreciate a lot of the design that you've come up with already. So that's my comments on that.
Well, thank you for your comments.
Ray's got some now. Go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. You've spurred on more comments for me, so thank you, Supervisor Sotelo. So I didn't see any numbers. I'm a numbers guy. So I know dealing with architects personally, I know sometimes they love to do a lot, and then I realized the costs are a lot more. So, did you do any cost evaluation or cost analysis?
So we're getting ready to do that at the
Okay.
schematic design level. So we're really trying to put all the design thought process into a set of documents so that we're gonna probably get an updated cost estimate where we're coming in the next few weeks.
Oh.
Once we go back, refine the design a bit, but yes, we will be looking at costs.
So then we'll have another presentation that will actually review
could,
that, or
yeah,
we'll have the documentation, or
we
be able
could
to review
share
it.
that out, yes. that's
Okay.
good.
Yeah. So some of these things could potentially change based on where we end up in the budget, right, and the cost
Yes.
element.
Yeah.
Just one more. Curious, Manny, Austin, is it Betty? Betty.
Becky.
Becky, sorry, Becky. Do you guys have any feedback on the design as far as kind of the
So-
map interior? Are you liking what you're seeing? Are you?
This is not quite a speak now or forever hold your truth kind of a concept, but we're asking for your input for a reason.
Supervisors, the biggest issue that we wanted, and I think they've addressed it to some extent, is storage. Yeah, we need more storage because especially with expanded services, expanded programming, we need to find places to store stuff so that we don't have to keep buying stuff so we can store it. And then there's stuff that's, for like Halloween, for some of the different holidays that we do functions for or whatever. It's nice to have the same, a place to store the stuff and not have to go out. So that, I think they've addressed a lot of that, but I think we're still pushing for more storage because again, it's the bigger footprint, and we want to put storage close to where the programming is going to be so that you won't have to traverse the whole facility. But I mean, we'll take whatever we can get, but any more storage I think will be helpful. I think that's the biggest, that was one of the biggest items that we wanted to push for, more storage.
That was the item that opened up this other conversation. Yes, Manny. So yes, make sure he gets the storage, please. Okay, I was looking back at the agenda, and Steve, you have a second part to that, the "and" portion I missed. And so we need to go back to item B and finish the "and" portion. So the "and" is the Department Capital Improvement Budget Request for the fiscal year 24-25.
JT, did we give you enough? JC, I am just blowing it today, aren't I? Did we give you enough? Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay. That should work. Okay, so hopefully you have the handouts because when we have the May 14th meeting, I have to blow up the text, so I apologize. So please refer to the handout. So we do absolutely want the two chair and vice chair's opinions today before we have the May 14th meeting on general fund request expenditures. And so for CIP projects, specifically facilities. And so what we're going to do, I'm going to go through these and provide some information. Really just on the first page, which is 25 items. Technically probably more like 23, which I'll mention in a minute. And so what we've actually done with staff and Ramon is we rank these in order of priorities. So in our opinion, the top half are higher priorities, we rank them higher than the lower half. And so I can go through these one by one. Please pause if you have questions about any of them, or please pause me if you have questions about any of the specific items. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go through. So the ones we prioritize were kind of health safety type of CIP projects, and the ones that are ongoing, either in design or construction. So those are kind of how we prioritize the higher level ones, and then the lower level ones, we'll talk about those as well. So okay, rolling right into it. Item number one, at the old jail, there's pockets in various locations of mold that we've been finding. We've been abating some of the mold, but we still put together kind of preliminary budget and thinks that there's approximately $200,000 worth of mold abatement that needs to happen at the old jail. Item number 2 is an ongoing project that we've started the design of. The jail has kind of a master power switch that's not operating consistently, and sometimes our own staff have to go and turn on power and do things that it's not preferable that they do it. And so it's called a transfer switch for the electrical power, and so that's item number 2. That's about the $55K. Item number 3, Sheriff's alternate dispatch site. We've talked a little bit about briefly, but basically what we're doing is we've already created the room and the infrastructure for the sheriff to have the 911 center transferred from current OES location to the sheriff's office. And so we're about 2/3 of the way through that process, and so that's an ongoing project. It is important for a lot of reasons, responding to 911 calls and sheriff's communication. Item 4 is a project we started. The county public works yard roof has some issues, and so we've brought an architect and started looking at trying to basically replace the roof and stop some leaks and things that are going on with that building out the public works yard. That's item number 4. It's an ongoing project. Item 5 is also ongoing. It's a little bit smaller. It's $20,000 for security. We've had some security issues with the public works yard, and so we're going to put up some security camera. We propose to put security camera system out at the yard there. Item 6 is a jail economizer, which is just this little unit that helps it monitors and regulates the HVAC system inside the jail. It's just a little component. It's $12,000, but we think it's important because it kind of keeps the airflow working properly at the old jail.
Hey, Steve, can I ask you a quick question regarding that one? Will this item, will that address, I'm sure with the mold, but with the mold abatement and this item, will that help reduce some of the smells at the jail?
It'll help, but that's an ongoing issue with just pipes and cracks in pipes and things. That's an ongoing issue. This will help. It'll help circulate the air better, but it won't solve that issue yet. We're still chasing that one down. We've spent some money on getting new pipes to be replaced in the chases. So it'll help circulate the air better, but we're still tackling that one because it's an issue. But
Have we, is there any, is there any risk with that? Like with the smell, is there any danger that there's something toxic or something like that in there? Any type of...
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's a good question. We'll look into that because it's... Yeah,
I mean, I just
we'll
think
look
like
into
when
that.
you mentioned the mold abatement as being number 1, like, yeah, that's a huge liability for us. So
Right.
to me, that absolutely needs to be taken care of as soon as possible. So, okay, I just was just curious about the smell. I just did a jail tour and
Yes,
it's unique.
it's yes, not
Okay.
pleasant. Yes.
And I'm actually new to that issue, so is that the old jail or the new jail?
The old jail. Okay, let's see. So at the jail, for a lot of reasons I won't go into, the inmates essentially dispose of their trash, typically through the toilet receptacles in their cells, or I should say primarily. There is other garbage units and things, but a lot of the inmates, they're actually stuck in the jail several hours a day because of that's just their parameters for their stay there. And so they end up disposing things into the sewer system, and so there's this massive grinder that it has teeth in it, and it chews up what's going through the sewer pipes. And the existing grinder is, the teeth are almost worn off completely now. And it's not uncommon for jails, I've been told, that they just, some of them have 2 grinders, and because they wear out and they can reroute to the other grinder. But our grinder is going to be needed to be replaced, will be needed to be replaced sometime soon. That's about $90,000. We're gonna have to start budgeting for that kind of ongoing every 3 or 4 years, unfortunately, it sounds like. We're trying to work around it, but.
So that was gonna be my question, is how often do we have to replace this grinder? Like, how long has the current one been in there?
I wanna say 4 years, it's either 4 or 5 years, but yeah.
So about every 4 to 5 years, we need to
Correct.
budget to replace the grinder?
Correct, that's
Okay,
correct.
thank you.
You bet. So, number 8's a good item, that's why I highlighted in green, Hall of Records abatement. So, we actually have in our general fund account a separate fund, it's called a teeter fund, and that's been accumulating for the Hall of Record where we had the fire. We were actually supposed to use it, I guess this year-ish, to abate some asbestos. We don't need to do that now. So currently that is dedicated to that building, that 1.9 million. It's here because if we decided to reallocate it, we could do that. However, until we know how much the insurance folks are going to give us to remodel, I would suggest we just keep it there. And it can always be relooked. If we don't need to use it, then the board can decide at a later date what to use that 1.9 million. But our suggestion and recommendation is to just keep it dedicated to the Hall of Records for now. So that's good.
Madam Chairman, I would ask you to put a / assessor's office, tax collector, treasurer, and elections, remediation or build out or whatever. Put some other language in there, and then that way it gives us options a little bit easier through the budget process. It's because if we decide to move them to the other building, we can make that transition for their office. So.
Or if there's updates to the existing space and they wanted to stay there, you put it
You
towards
can
that
put it
as
somewhere
well,
else,
right?
exactly.
Gives us just flexibility.
Just give
Okay.
flexibility through the year.
Is that something we do through the facilities committee, or that's
No,
something
it's through the
we do through
budgeting
the Board of
process. So
Su-
this will
okay.
be through the budget process, but
Okay,
it
but
just,
that out of facilities, we would
we will
recommend
sit down.
adding
Exactly.
treasurer, tax
Right.
collector, assessor, and Francisco,
yeah,
right?
Elections.
Yeah.
Elections,
So-
yeah, there you go.
And we can do
so-
that today if the chair and vice chair decide to do that. We could make that today so it's presented that way May 14th.
Yeah, I think it's better to have flexibility because we don't know where they're, if the library doesn't, we move the library over, then just kind of musical chairs. It just allows us for more flexibility.
So then, do you have enough direction, or do we have to vote on that?
Well, we're going to take this to the 14th board. We're going to bring
okay.
this back to the
board will.
board on the 14th, but we wanted to give you a glimpse of it before we actually did, so that if there's anything that stands out, we wanted to talk about it. So.
Right, and so today, to answer the question, vice chair and chair, you can give us direction on that item or any of these items. We're going to discuss, but yeah, so.
And we're going to talk about the budgetary and potentially what is necessary from a safety, health perspective, which at the very end of this conversation, Steve will elaborate further on what that is.
Correct. So next item, it's similar to the jail. Our staff's done a few visits to the old jail recently, and there's some showers and flooring. Some of the flooring's in the showers, and basically, this item specifically pertains to showers at the old jail, and we need to look at repairing them and upgrading them to be ADA compliant as well. So we did a preliminary cost estimate of $120K for those repairs on item 9. Library book locker is an ongoing project for the library to store some items outside for the existing library, and that's an ongoing project that is in the works. Let's see, the jail handler, air handler system replacement. So the air handler is essentially a fancy name for some of the air conditioning units on the roof. This $200,000 just replaces, the $180,000 just replaces one of the units. I believe there's 5 total. And so we do recommend at least replacing one of the units just to keep that system of air flowing properly. Ag Department building improvement, $275,000. So for the Ag Department, each year the county is required by the state to provide funds. They call it maintenance of effort. And so what that means is we, the county, say the ag department is a department that we want to have as part of our county system. And when we do that, we contribute funds, and it comes from the general fund, the $275,000. But what that does is, subsequent, after we make that commitment, it triggers release of funds from the state to the ag department that are essentially, for better, I guess the best way to say it is it's a matching kind of system. So if we put in the 275, the average over the years that we've been matched by the state is about 275, and it's kind of a running average. It's not exactly that. Sometimes one's higher or lower, but you know, we commit the 275, then the state later will say, okay, great, you do care about your ag department, so we'll match those funds. I think it's for a couple different types of funds. So we recommend the general fund contributes the 275 because that's the running average, and that therefore the state actually matches, kind of doubles the fund, or adds that amount to the county coffers for the ag department.
So is this a yearly expense that we pay into? So are there plans to do something out there this year?
There are. So it's specifically for the ag buildings. We've talked about roofs and walls and all kinds of fun things. So yes. So in the past, I don't know if those funds have always been utilized. They've been, when we've had them. Long story short, this 275 will go to the ag department buildings, their improvements of those buildings, and we've discussed what some of those improvements could be.
So is it 275 or will it be 550?
We intend to, it's 275.
So even though the state essentially is going to reimburse us the 275.
They're going to match. That's correct. Match it. They're going to add on to the 275.
So it's 550 then.
It is. But some of the other 275 are used for operations and staffing and other things. Right?
Okay, so the 275 is going to be operations.
Yeah, half will go to operations.
And then the other
half will go to the
275 is going
building
to go to
itself.
improvements.
Okay.
Have we explored, and I haven't talked to anybody, so again, shame on me for saying this, but have we explored the Rosa Morada site for possibly being an ag center? And I'm looking, we said we needed 300, I'm looking at 275, and I feel like it'd be a good location for our ag community.
We have definitely had those conversations. We have with the ag commissioner, and it's a possibility. It's not their preference to be out there, but it is a possibility as opposed to rehabbing where they're at. They do prefer their current location for different reasons, but we've had those conversations. I'll say that much. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
In case of where Satella for asking those questions, because previously it was Supervisor Kosmicki and I on the facilities, and I personally have no knowledge of what the ag commissioners experienced out there, but you do from your prior profession, and so keep on asking those questions. Don't feel bad. Thank you.
Absolutely. And if the folks in back can switch back to the spreadsheet, that'd be great. And item 13, that is kind of a sister item to the alternate dispatch site. Number 3 is OES interior remodel. So once we relocate the 911 center over to the sheriff's department, that'll open up the OES. And we're actually, I honestly don't know if it's a state law, but I know that OES has said multiple times we need to have an emergency operations center, so that when we had the floods and things, we actually had someplace to meet for emergency purposes. And so the remodel of their interior will be between 60 and 80,000, so we put 80,000. And I'm going to pause there. For life, safety, ongoing projects, and what we would consider, quote, urgent projects, number 13 is somewhat a dividing line. Not to say that these remaining projects are not important, because they are, but as CEO Espinoza mentioned, I think we added up those projects rounding off for about $1 million. And so that's up to item 13. Item 14, which is
Hey,
also
Steve, before you go on, can I ask you a quick question? On item 13, and I apologize, I don't know this, but is there access to that building from the front of it, or is the only access from kind of, you have to go into the courtyard and,
There's two accesses. There's one off
There is
Fourth
one in the
Street,
front?
and there's one in the back.
There's
that
one
you're-
okay,
It's kind of kitty corner. You kind of have to go in the front, then you kind of come around. Then the door's in the left hand
Okay.
side, but it's still in the front.
but I mean, essentially, we could really utilize that as an emergency center when having kind of street access
Yeah.
was my only, that was
100%.
kind of where I was going with it.
100%.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
That,
The only problem with that building is it reeks of mold as well, and so there are abatement issues that have to be handled with that building.
yeah, we did testing, and the testing came back that there was not mold abatement required. I know the odor that you're referring to, we're still investigating, but we actually had to test.
Well, I walk in and my nose detects it immediately, whether a machine reads it or not. I can smell it. So-
I understand. I concur. There is that slight odor, like you're saying. I concur. So that's why we did the testing. We couldn't find any actually. But okay. So let's see. Chamber seats remodeling and security upgrades. So here,
So can I stop you for a moment? You
Sure.
said beyond item number 13, that kind of hits a line of like $1 million. What was that $1 million reference for? Was that what we were looking at to possibly budget for, or?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Thanks for bringing that up. So, again, we're looking at the entire budget as a whole and what the general fund obligation would be from reserves, we basically have a couple of options for the board. We can go through and just from a very high level, if you subtract the 1.9 from this, you're looking at, probably 3.8 million, probably maybe actually probably about 3 million, I guess, 3, 4. Yeah, so probably about 3 million-ish or so, 2.7 if you, with the 275 there. But bottom line is that that's total for all of this out of the general fund. So this is a general fund ask. I have a conversation with Steve. It's like, okay, we have to be counting every penny. A lot of money we've been diverting to roads, and there's still that CIP that we still need to review. So I think I asked him today, like, what is the minimum, like, what do we have to do? Like, what from a safety and health point of view? So really, in essence, 1 through 13-ish, 12, that's approximately about $1 million. So that's what the general fund would probably be obligated to cover, and I think those are at least essential things that we have to cover for this year. Again, you got to consider there's rollover over the years, just to start these projects to go through the process, and sometimes they don't actually get completed 2 or 3 years down the road anyways. But I think in light of kind of what we discussed this morning, I would probably be recommending the 1 million, and we'll have to pull it out of reserves. That's just my take on it, but I wanted you to be aware of it before we talk on the 14th to the entire board. Ponder over it, think about it. If something comes up, obviously reach out to me or Steve prior to the 14th, so we're on the same page, and then we can talk to the board about it on the 14th. That's really, in essence, what we're doing today.
Well, I just heard that $1 million comment, so I wanted to make sure. Now, I was going to wait for this comment until he gets to item 25, but you said these items that aren't here in no particular order of preference? Is that, did I hear you say that?
no, actually, we actually rank these 1 through 25 in order of preference.
Okay, so
the top
sorry, in my
1
mind.
through, no problem. Yeah,
Understand, I'm still having this darn sinus infection that makes me feel like I'm totally intoxicated when I've had nothing to drink. But it impairs my thinking. But what I did is I went through items 1 through 11, and I saw jail pop up in so many different areas and the needs for the jail. Are there not particular funds, the CCP money or the AB 109 monies that could be utilized for jail improvement, since it's for that same population in which we're trying to serve and put, conditions out there where they have to be, humanely treated?
So I will say, and I'll divert to Supervisor Sotelo. She sits on the CCP. I will say, based on the last conversation that we had with the CCP and leveraging over $500,000 for
Public defender,
the
yes.
public defender.
Yay for that one, yes.
Yeah, and ultimately, there's probably a little bit more on top of that. Their reserves are dwindling, and really they are almost tapped out based on the FTEs and some of the items that are being requested. So there's a park item that has been approved and authorized through AB 109. So I just signed off on that today, but that's an allocation of funds. So they've encumbered funding. That funding is based on some of the reserves, so the one-time items, and also too they're leveraging staffing as well. So they're pretty much maxed out. I'll just say based on my evaluation of their reserve, they did have reserves, but they're pretty maxed now. Yeah, I wouldn't.
Yeah, I completely agree with CAO Espinosa. And I think the other thing for us to keep in mind is that a lot of these things to me are kind of capital improvement projects that we have got to, whether it's maintenance or whatever it is. The AB 109, particularly that funding, is really for kind of recidivism and trying to keep people out of the system. So repairing the boiler or whatever it is doesn't really, while it's important and it's kind of life safety, that's not what AB 109 was intended for. And so I think we're going to have a hard time putting some of these kind of capital expenses into asking. So I think they are already covering stuff that should be being covered, say, by the general fund. With staffing even, they're paying for, AB 109 is paying for some of those. So I would say CCP is pretty tapped out at the moment. They do have healthy reserves, but it's pretty important that they have some healthy reserves, because if we ever had to send a youth away for a higher maximum facility needed or whatever, we quickly could go through that funding really fast. So I agree.
Okay, well, thank you for that input. Okay.
Yeah, great point. Big picture, the old jail, there might be a point where, I know nobody wants to hear bonds and things, but the new jail's working well, but the old jail has a very specific purpose, and I don't know, at some point you might want to think long-term.
At some point we may need to have, I don't know, some community outreach regarding the jail, because I think sometimes people don't understand. The old jail can operate without the new jail. The new jail cannot operate without the old jail,
Correct.
Essentially, right? The new jail is just, it's an additional facility, but it's more of a rehabilitation, and it doesn't meet the needs of the entire population. So you have to have the old jail. I think because I was one, it's like, why not close the old jail? You have the new jail. It's really having two different facilities, and they meet very, very different needs. And so I think that we really don't have a choice. We have to fix the old jail, whatever needs fixing, or we've got to go after some grants or whatever it is, because there is no possibility of closing that old jail until a new jail is built that would be able
Serve
to
that population.
serve the entire population. Yeah.
You're correct.
But I think most people don't know that.
You're also correct. Yes.
So if I may, just to piggyback on that, so you're aware, we also went through, we're going to be having town halls this year, the remaining part of the year. So we're spreading them out per quarter. The plan is to have a finance awareness for the public in June, June 3rd or 4th in the evening. We're still verifying location and availability. We have in August safety, so it'll be OES, the sheriff's office dealing with corrections, the correction facility, etc., as well as fire. So the plan is to have OES, the state down, and just to have awareness. Wait a minute, that was in November, if I remember correctly. That was November. And then the other one was behavioral health and social services awareness. So I think I got the 2 month swap. So I think that's going to be in August, and then the safety is going to be in November, right before the potential climate changes and storms and different things. So we wanted to have it kind of right before that, so people are aware of it. So Vets Hall for one of them. We are looking at other locations for the other, but we're going to have 3 different ones this year, and then we'll have some more next year.
Fantastic. I love that. I'm so glad we're doing that. But maybe when we do safety, if we can include make sure we include the jail conversation.
Yes, yes.
In there.
Yeah, corrections, yeah, the jail, yeah.
That would be amazing. Thank you.
What was the date on the behavioral health one? I have a June, August, and a November, and then what was the next one?
I'm gonna invite Gracie up. She can
Sorry.
give the dates. I don't have those. I have those in my office, and Gracie has her tablet with her, so she has it written down.
So for the first town hall, we are looking at June 4th. We did reach out to Payne, so we're hoping to get that reserved. If not, then we also are considering behavioral health for the sheriff's office. In August, we have secured August 22nd at the Vets Memorial Building. We'll be going over roads, COG, Caltrans, those, and then.
Yeah, sorry, my bad. It's roads.
Roads and COG.
We're gonna do behavioral health too, right?
Behavioral health will be in June.
June.
Okay. No, we're doing finance in June.
Oh, correct. Finance in June.
So we're gonna come back.
Yeah.
Let us get those
Eventually.
dates
Now I
right
know-
for
now
you,
I know
okay?
I'm
We had
confused.
4 items.
I think
We have worked on it. We're going through it, and we have multiple dates, and we are reaching out to staff to put together agenda items. And basically, what we discussed is social services, behavioral health, health and human services, safety, which is OES state Cal OES, and the safety element would be operations, as well as corrections, so the jail, as well as having fire present for that as well. So that's important. And then the other part of it was the road element, just having awareness with the roads. We again, I think where the confusion is that we were discussing finance and we were thinking about piggybacking the roads because there's an element to, it's a very large, there's a large amount of roads we're gonna do, and there's a fiscal piece of it they kind of mesh together and tie together. So I think that's where we have some
Well,
overlap
and I will
there.
tell you, finance people are gonna be like, "Oh my gosh,
Yeah, it'd be
boring
dry."
roads." Everybody will be there, so
if we
very
tie
strategic.
the two together, I think it's going to work.
Very
So I think
strategic.
that's what we discussed, and I think that's the maybe I wouldn't say confusion, but I think that's what we had
Okay.
drafted, and I think
Okay.
we're gonna. But I haven't talked to Steve about that yet. So, but Steve's great, so I'm sure he'll be available.
And then November, we haven't decided on the date, but it's November.
And I would just say that I think if we can have them all at the Vets building is preferable. I think getting people in the habit of going to the same location, I think if we start mixing it up, especially out to behavioral health or to the sheriff's, it's not as welcoming and as friendly to the entire public, right? Everybody knows where Vets building is. It's downtown Hollister. It's easy to get there. We have transportation if people needed it, right? They could take County Express. To some of the other locations, it's going to be a lot harder and so less inclusive. So I would say if there is a possibility of scheduling them all at Vets or scheduling them all, whatever the location is, schedule them all there and try to keep the same time, same kind of day. Get the
Consistency,
community
yes.
in the habit of, because if we mix it up all the time, it just gets too confusing.
Yeah, understood.
Yeah, and we did try to secure the Vets Memorial Building for this upcoming one in June. However, they didn't have any availability, so we are trying to work with what we have. But for the incoming year, we'll definitely.
And June is such a slam month. We had talked a little bit about it. That just we have budget, we have GOFA meetings, we have there's just a lot happening, and then there's a lot of individuals within the community that have graduations and kids ending school, and there's kind of a lot of things going on. So we're working on that. We might have some nuances in June, but we'll try to keep it with the Vets.
I might even suggest the library as a location. I know we might be cramped in there, but I think that, again, it's a central location. People know where the library is. I think normally I would say any other meetings, I'm always an advocate for, let's go to behavioral health, let's go to the sheriff's. But I think with this, if we're trying to get the community there, choose a centralized location that people can have easy access to.
Fair enough. Yep.
Sorry, Manny, to throw you under the bus.
All right.
All right, so the remaining items are sure. No, we need to yeah. And that's the old one, yeah. So I'll say the jail next to the new jail building.
On Flynn Road, on Flynn Road.
On Flynn Road, yeah. That's pretty much all these items, actually, as far as jail. Just FY. Yeah, sorry about that. You betcha. So, okay, so the remaining items are still important. They're just not maybe health safety type items, but or ongoing items yet. So number 14, chamber seats, remodel, and security upgrades. So a while back, we actually, well, it doesn't matter. Moving forward, we do need to replace these seats and some malfunctioning ones in the corner over here, as well as we walked this room with interior design person and provider of someone that could enhance the security of this chamber in the event of an incident. And they talked about bulletproof glass and some things, or not glass, fiberglass, a bulletproof shield, I'll say, around here, and having an escape route and things. So we would recommend, even though it's not health related, it's would be a very good project, not only to have the seats, but to have the security enhanced a bit in this room. So we think that's a good project moving forward to consider, please.
I will just add to the new environment since COVID, there has been a technology need. Zoom and the board still wants to have people to have access to it. And we've noticed that certain types of access, if you're using one way, it's really hard to hear. If you're listening to it through a different avenue, through Zoom, you can hear it. So it's fine, but then there's some that are using the CMAP location, and then it's not so good. We've been having some issues with CMAP, so we're looking at other options. But I think we need to probably revamp the technology to make sure that the community can hear the meetings, no matter what platform they're using, and it be sound, as well as even in the back room as well, because we have a lot of closed sessions, and that technology needs to be redone as well. So I think those are really important.
So can I ask a quick question then about this? So I'm seeing there's 190,000 for the entire project. Will that include all of the seats being upgraded, the safety upgrades, as well as the technology? Is that all included, or would the technology piece be a separate item?
When we walked with those two folks, they did mention brand new camera system connecting to the room. So it might be a little bit extra. It's for the software end of it and perhaps hardware in that room. But they did mention enhanced cameras and a sound system with the cameras, basically.
Mm-hmm.
So my answer is, that's 80-90% of the cost. So if we want to upgrade a bit, and maybe it's, I don't know, 220-ish.
Well,
we have to get some input on.
I think we probably need to do a little homework before the
we have to do
14th to
some
make sure that we get the right number in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it did include these security with.
I mean, I think the
Cameras.
accessibility for the community is going to be really important. So the technology, the cameras, the microphones, all of that is really important. As well as I do think security, having a secure kind of, even for people that are in the audience, making sure that everybody in this facility is safe, and we do have plans. I mean, we never want to think about those things. And I always think, we live in Hollister and it's such a sweet community, and but all it takes is one horrible thing to happen, right? And so I think better to be prepared than to be caught by surprise and woulda, shoulda, coulda. And so, I think it's pretty important. So,
Well, and I think maybe that's something that we can work on, having a security system to check when you're coming in, make sure there's no anything.
And I mean, here's the thing: we're paying right now to have security,
so
which is costing us annually to pay for the security. If maybe we did some security upgrades, we wouldn't have to have an officer at every single meeting. So in some ways, it could offset. Mm-hmm.
It still might be good to have him and also manage who's coming in and out as well. I don't want to completely remove that.
Okay.
I think it is very helpful, and I think it helps, but I think we need to enhance it a little bit more. That's my
Okay.
my take on it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
So a lot of caveat to research some of the hardware, software updates, and perhaps item 14 increases in cost. Sounds good, but it is, staff concurs, it's important, an important improvement. Okay, so the district attorney's office, they asked for some repairs to their carpeting and subfloors to the tune of $90K. It's item 15.
Hey, Steve, on this one, did the DA, were they able, I know, if I can remember correctly, they asked for like a wall or something this last year. Did that get completed?
I believe it's completed, right?
Can you?
It's in progress? Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair. Salman Kazmi with Public Works, RMA. So the DA office, we had projects for some carpet repair and installation of the partition wall. The carpet installation or repair work is completed, but the partition wall has already been ordered, and there's a lead time for about 3 months from when we ordered, and it will deliver prior to June 30th. So it will be complete this fiscal year.
But there's just carpet, they need to do carpet. Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Subfloor
So-
repair and carpet.
Yes, so originally the budget was signed for the project for the repair of the carpet for some certain areas. So this 90K is for the entire second floor where the DA office is.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
All right, then there is just a couple safety ballers in the parking lot, not log, I apologize. That's to the tune of $6K. That's just so some folks don't drive too far towards a building. Number 17, old jail replace roof and install new HVAC system. Design phase only. So we think it's worthwhile to start the design for roof replacement and a new HVAC system. They're both aging rapidly. We think that $2 million is sufficient to perform that design for your consideration as an item. The RMA, we are, 8 to 10 staff downstairs are constantly in Zoom meetings and things, and there's not a lot of privacy. Some folks have installed curtains and things, but if the board and this vice chair and chair decide to move forward, we could put nice new partitions with desks and actually have some privacy and some sound attenuation for that staffing over at the RMA downstairs. County roof project, admin building roof repairs. I'll kind of go through the next three. They're similar. There's admin roof repairs to the tune of about $270,000. Sheriff RMA roof repairs, which accompanies the Sheriff Training Center roof. The Sheriff RMA, roof repair is $260,000, and the Training Center roof is $57,000. Sheriff Office evidence lockers, where they store their evidence, they requested $25,000 to upgrade their evidence lockers. The Ag Commissioner garage remodel, it's essentially some doors and changing the roof structure a bit to fit in their truck, which was going to happen this year, but we found out that was general fund dollars that were just not necessarily allocated to the ag department, so that's still on the list. And the old jail roof perimeter drain has a drainage system that if we spend $150K, we can divert the water better away from the foundation of the jail, because some of the downspouts and things are just, they need to be replaced. So that's that item. And finally, we put this item as number 25 because we don't think that it's actually going to happen this fiscal year, but we want to keep it on everybody's radar. If the Office of Ed needs to be relocated down to 1131 San Felipe, we estimate that costs for construction and design would be $150,000 based on site walks with them when they would be relocated to where the tax collector and assessor is currently on San Felipe Road. But again, it's on the bottom of the list because that's right around the time next summer is when we'll start that type of relocation and things and design, and so it's probably not going to be needed this fiscal year. So I'll
On all of the roofing items, are the roofs starting to leak, or what's the, what's the kind of
Yes. So,
state that they're in?
yes, they each have either minor leaks or leaks when it rains. So,
So they pretty much I mean, we can not do it, but deferring them just going to increase the cost next year and more damage, so we're better off just doing it now.
yeah, that's correct. Our building maintenance folks, they're good at patching things, but they only patch so much, like you said.
Mhm.
So.
Okay, okay. And
And-
then what are the evidence lockers?
So I don't know the shape and size. We talked to the sheriff, but it's where they store their evidence, I guess, right, Simon? Yeah, when they gather evidence, they need more capacity and. I think-
Before the library leaves, I have a question on one of the library items. Sorry, Steve. Library, it goes, it's the same, it's a locker, it's another locker expense. Library book locker, can you explain what that is to me and why it's life safety?
No, it's an ongoing project.
Oh, it's an ongoing project, so, okay. I just thought items 1 through 13 were life safety, not necessarily, just an
Explain it.
ongoing.
Let me explain it, what
Okay.
it is. The book locker was actually purchased with the grant that was awarded during the $499,000 that was awarded a couple of years ago.
Okay,
So this is one of the projects that, and it's basically for automating books when the library is closed. You can actually put books there for people to pick up after hours or weekends.
oh, okay.
And we're trying to just get it installed. We already purchased it. It's ready to be delivered, but we need to connect it.
Oh, so it's something that is, this would be to install it,
We
essentially.
don't have it yet
To
because
finish the
we're waiting
product.
to.
But I
yeah,
mean, it's purchased, it's sitting there, we just need to have we need to connect it.
correct.
Okay, gotcha, okay. So it sounds like that's pretty important to get
It's-
that done,
it's
get it
important.
completed, wrap
Just
it up.
get it done. It's not
Okay,
much to get.
I thought it was an item we already had and we were making repairs to it, that's why I didn't understand what it was. Thank you for that.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
apologize. The top 12, 13, a handful of them are just ongoing projects that we feel it's necessary to complete, and the rest are like kind of health, safety, life safety. Yeah, so. All right, and then there are 2 more pages, but those are all funded with non-general fund sources. So, so we'll discuss those on the May 14th, I believe, but today might not be necessary because.
Not entirely necessarily. I
Right,
will just
yeah.
highlight a couple things that are, I would just, and we already talked a little bit about item 41. I think 28 is one we should highlight. So 28.
Thank you. That's the one I wanted to ask about the library, the status of the kiosk, because I've been asking for that for about 2 years now. What's happening with the library kiosk? When is it going to be started, and then when is it going to be finished?
It's very similar to what Manny just said. There's a cement and hookup, internet connection hookup that still needs to be done, and this is approximately $200,000-300,000. Get my glasses on here.
Right, so we're going to be.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
We're going to be using $300K from the library impact fees. That's mostly paying for the site work and the telecommunications, because we're trying different providers, but no matter which provider we go with, it seems like they want to charge us, well,
It's out in the country and it's more
$100,000.
expensive out there, and I think that's the big issue.
yeah, and we've been.
It's not in the country, but it's out of ways where there's not a lot of service available in that location.
Right, so that was a cost that was not anticipated, because
Yeah.
originally we thought it would communicate remotely without having to do a hardline wire to, whether it's AT&T or Spectrum or whatnot. And we worked with the folks at Envisionware that created the kiosk, and basically at the end of the day they said, no, you got to do a hardline wire, and so we're doing that. And that's $100K, and then as CEO mentioned, the site work around there with ADA requirements and a few other things is becoming $150, $200K. So long story short, the $499 that was originally allocated was not sufficient. So we
And
have
so-
the funding, but we're still at least a few months away. I don't know from
Yeah, and
making
so
it reality. So.
Yeah, and so we're looking at different options. We looked at the ARPA money, potentially cover it, but I think at the end of the day, let's use what we have. We have the impact fees. Let's use that. It's truly an expansion of the library for those individuals out there. So it really falls in line with impact fees and what spending is for impact fees, what the obligation is with impact fees. And then we're going to keep it very simple on the ARPA side, the 2.5 million and the work that we're doing now. And we'll have to figure out if we're going to go to the old courthouse or then there's going to be probably an adjustment in some cost. But the fact is we're going to probably have to roll it over somehow, and we might have to put it to salaries and then do a budget adjustment to cover the cost if we can't get this done within this year. That's the real key issue with the ARPA funding. So, but anyways, so that's the reason why we have the impact fee, and instead of ARPA or some other source of funding, I think that's a good use of it. So, hopefully that answers your thoughts, Supervisor Gonzalez.
Thank you.
And then, and then 41, we just talked about it, so it's just the ARP element. But there's definitely going to be, we might have to go through an internal fund transfer and do some borrowing against an existing fund to actually cover those costs due to the timing on the ARPA obligation this year. So we'll figure that out. We'll present that on the 14th. We'll have it out then.
Yeah, we're not proposing to lose any ARPA money. We just have to.
We don't want to lose it, so we
Right.
need to spend it. So if it means we got to divert it somewhere else and
Exactly.
cover those costs. So.
Right. And then we can go through the rest later, but there's parks and there's a few extra brand new general fund requests from the sheriff's office, behavioral health, but they're all self-funded, so to speak. So that's pretty much it for CIP facilities.
Okay, so, your
Supervisor
questions?
Smith,
Go ahead.
yeah. So I really appreciate this. Looks like we have a lot of work to do.
Mm-hmm.
But at what point do we start thinking about a master facilities plan? We had the question of the jail, the old jail, and that's now the old. It really needs to be demolished, as well as some other buildings probably on this block. At what point, I guess I just kind of, my fear is that if we don't ever start to plan for the future, it may be 20 years out, but if we don't have that vision and we don't start to plan for it, we're never going to get there, right? So I guess I just think it's so incredibly important that we start working on having a vision, because, I don't know, I guess a year, 5 years, they go so fast.
So that's music to my ears.
Yeah, because
I
at
think
one
it's
point there was one. I
we
recall.
actually have one. I had the same thought, the same same line of reasoning, and I'm like, express this to the prior board. We have to do something because our buildings are falling apart. Everything's falling apart. We have to have a plan. So we developed a plan. It took over a year, maybe a year and a half to work on, and we have a very large facility planned with multiple options on how we can go. But obviously the price tag's pretty expensive in some fashion. But I think and some of that's integrated into our impact fee report. So that was used as a basis for that. But I think it would be great to bring that back to this
Please
committee.
do.
I would love to have that brought back to the facilities and start to highlight that. I think as a community, we have got to start planning for the future.
Yeah.
And I just think if we don't start highlighting it, it'll be 15 years, 20 years is going to go by, and we're going to be sitting in the same place if we don't start to plan for it.
I agree 100%.
And the needs just keep growing, right? Like in 2 years, we need to add a public defender's department. And the question right now is, not only how do we fund it, but where are we going to put another department?
Yeah.
And as supervisors, we have a very full schedule. We don't have offices. It's a challenge, and so space is a challenge. And so I just think that there's an opportunity to optimize the space on this block, particularly. And so I would love to see us start to plan for the future of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And a couple of the roof items there were actually extracted from that master plan.
Yes.
So we did look at it, but big picture, we need to start thinking bigger, like you're saying, and longer term. Yeah. Good deal. Real quick on item 8, is it the will of the chair and vice chair to say hall records / tax collector / treasurer / election staffing for that 1.9 million? Okay.
Yes.
So I'll make that change. I just wanted to confirm that. Thank you. And then we can either make any other changes, per your recommendations today, or continue discussion on May 14th.
Yeah, so we'll continue it, and then we'll add the next, if there's any input from you on the next meeting, anything you'd like to see on the agenda, but we'll make sure we put that on. Then that can probably take the whole facility committee, I think, just going over, reviewing that, because there's a lot to look at and discuss. And there's multiple options, so I think it's a great thing. So, yeah.
I think that'd be great. And I think starting to get community involvement and input on that would be really fantastic. But obviously, library is going to remain one of the top things. That's going to be an item every single facilities committee meeting, I imagine, until we're close to the end, right?
Absolutely.
At least until construction starts.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right.
All right.
Well, if there aren't any more issues for item number 1B, let's move on to 1C then. We see the update on the art sculpture plaque.
Good afternoon. This should be a quick update. I just wanted to let you both know that we did go ahead and order a plaque. It was attached to the staff report for your viewing. We did order the stand, and we're waiting on that. Once we receive that stand, we'll go ahead and be placing it in front of our administration building. But just want to keep you in the loop and say we're moving forward with that project.
Thank you.
Do you have an estimate on when the plaque and stand will arrive and be installed?
So I ordered this stand, I believe, last month.
Okay.
They had to order it because they don't carry it in stock anymore. So
Okay.
once they receive it, they'll ship it to us. We should receive it within a week or so. I anticipate that maybe this month or in the coming
So
month.
maybe like within a month or
Yeah.
a month or two, it should be all installed. And
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. I think you guys did a really good job. It looks really pretty, and the language is just really nice. It's really appropriate. Hopefully that kind of softens and
Yes.
and gives a lot more explanation, because I know it's been a contentious item. So thank you for all your work on that.
So then, do we have any public comments on item 1C?
Anybody like to come up to the podium on Zoom? I don't have any public comment.
Okay. Nobody on Zoom, is that what you said? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so that takes us to the end. So future agenda items. What I would like to see is an update on the Rosa Morada building and what we as a board have decided and what we as a ad hoc have asked for, because I know that there are various individuals in the community that want to see access used to it, to get to either to rent it, purchase it. I don't know. They're not quite sure what they want to do, but they want access to go and inspect it and see. And I know that we're always talking about potentially that being a site for the county to use for possibly the ag extension or something of that nature. But I know that we need to come with a firm plan, so we keep going back to it, like the drawing board, and finding out, because if it's not an option for the community to use, then it's not an option. If the county's doesn't have any plans for it and we're gonna dispose of it, then let's get to the bottom of that and get an appraisal to see what the property's worth. So, and I'm not trying to tell you what to do, I'm just trying to get an idea so I can share information that is what the board has decided to do.
Yeah, so just based on the earlier item, that we can discuss facilities, and it's not limited to what we talked about. I will go ahead and comment on that. So there are many factors. I know that there's been working with Steve on testing the water, on addressing a few things regarding that site. There's also we are working with the city and in the fire committee to evaluate fire services within our community. Originally, that site that we earmarked that for fire. So I hate to sell that, and then if there's a requirement or some out of the study, it says, hey, we need something right in that area. I hate to obligate it to something else when we already have it. Now it's going to cost even more since we already have that property. So So I think that's another item I wouldn't say hesitation. I think we're just kind of wanted to know where we stand with everything before we pull the trigger on releasing that or selling that property. You know, I know that there's been discussion of the library, which is probably unfeasible for them to be there, but maybe we could rehabilitate it in a very limited fashion just for storage, potentially. I don't know. Not to say that they would operate out of there, but potentially storage or even the ag department or some other department. But did you want to add anything to that, Steve?
Yeah, just a couple things. One, we actually did give a tour to the group that requested it per your request, and so that happened. And then I'm pretty sure we also got an appraisal for the property.
I think we did,
About a
but
month and a half ago,
I'm not sure. I haven't seen it, so I don't want to.
Right.
I didn't want to commit to that.
Right.
I think
Pretty sure it
Barbara.
happened,
I think
actually.
the county counsel's office was spearheading that, so I'll double check. We'll double
Yeah,
check with that.
so a couple things we did
Yeah.
progress with per the direction of the.
Yeah.
But I do recall saying there was like a $330,000 figure was gonna cost just to fix the repairs of the damage from the vandals that had got into the building, you know, to make it useful for whoever might be able to get into it.
So make it habitable and clean up the site. Yeah, we estimated between 300,000 and 400,000 roughly. So usable for staff and clean up the site.
Well, if it's gonna sit idle, we might need to secure it a little bit better than if we're gonna be using it for a future use for the county. Because I would hate to see it be that dollar figure to continue to rise because kids getting in there, you know, and
We actually, since the first, recently, I'll say we've installed real thick plywood with special screws, so we haven't had any issues since then.
Supervisor Paul, you have a question?
Not so much, just that I've talked to people that live in the area and they've kind of complained about people being there that shouldn't be there, they're parking there, and you know, these are people that live out there and it kind of creates some safety concerns for them, and so I think they just would like to, they're like, what is the county going to do with that space? I don't know, we're kind of exploring all options right now, but I think in the meantime, I think we just need to do, you know, it sounds like you've done a little bit better job securing it and stuff, but even just, it's a bit of an eyesore for the residents that live there, so.
Maybe your staff can go out there and trim the weeds and kind of.
We can perform weed abatement and.
Yeah.
And then hopefully soon we'll have some direction on some of the items that CAO mentioned, and that'll help us decide one way.
And then we'll have more.
Do we let it
more
go, or
clarity.
do we use it for, one way or another?
Yeah.
Understood.
So we'll make sure that we have the library as well as the review of the facility plan, master plan. And if you want Rosa Morada, we'll put it on. But I think we're still kind of in flux with that. I mean,
Yeah,
based
if you're still in flux with it, then yeah, because the price of real estate is going up just considerably.
Yeah.
And for us to liquidate that, only to have to go find another piece on
place.
our own, it'll be
Yeah.
cost prohibitive.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah. Thanks.
all right. Okay, if there are no further questions or comments, then let's go ahead and I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I motion to adjourn.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Two
you.
no.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
Sorry,
very
I
much.
made it so much longer today. I have so many questions,
You
but
have to stop
we can do
apologizing.
this.
No.
We can do this.
Yeah, it's you're part of the team, so.
I know, but I kept us here for an hour longer.